Today we are going to be looking at regular and overtime pay. So many companies keep an exact record of the number of hours an employee works. They record times when people arrive, take breaks, leave for the day. So there are several types of different methods to recording this information. The first method is a magnetic card. Most larger companies electronically record time worked. As they arrive or leave, they pass a magnetic strip card through a reader, and then the reader communicates with a computer to log the time in that they clock in and the time they clock out. Time cards. Other companies can use this to record work time of an employee. As they arrive or leave, employees manually insert the time card into a slot on a time clock where the current time is printed. And then the employer will take these cards and put it into their system. The last one is a timesheet. Smaller companies simply just write down when their employees work, and then they'll do that on their payroll form. Let's look at different pay rates. So overtime is any time that is worked beyond the regular work day or week, depending on how your company determines this. A work week is considered 40 hours, and a work day is considered 8 hours. Some might have different, but it will be said by your employer or on the problems we'll be seeing. Daily overtime is based on a regular work day, so any overtime that's worked after 8 hours would be considered daily overtime. So there's different types of overtime. There's time and a half, which you take 1.5 and multiply it by your regular pay rate. Double time, you multiply your pay rate by 2. When we are calculating overtime, we are not going to round. Your company does not want to pay you any more that they don't have to. So let's look at a couple examples. An employee who works 10 hours in one day will be paid for 8 hours of regular time. The other leftover time would be overtime, so it would be 2 additional hours that they would get overtime for. Here we are going to find the new pay rates for time and a half. So $7.51. We're going to take the pay rate and multiply it by time and a half. So it'd be multiplied by 1.5. And when we multiply this, we get $11.26. I want you to try the next two, come back to the video and check your answers. Let's check number 2. We're going to take our pay rate, $8.76, and multiply it by 1.5 for time and a half. When we do that, we get $13.14. The last one, we're going to take our pay rate of $13.67, multiply it by time and a half, so 1.5, and we get $20.50. We're going to do the same thing for the next couple problems, but we're dealing with double time. So we're going to take our regular time and multiply it by 2. So $7.51 times 2. And when we multiply that, we get $15.02. Okay, pause the video and try the next two, then come back and check your work. Okay, let's check it. We're going to take our pay, $8.76, and multiply it by 2. When we multiply that, we get $17.52. The last one here, same process. We're going to take our regular pay, $13.67, multiply it by 2. When we do that, we get $27.34. Okay, let's look at this other example. Paul's regular pay is $10.73 an hour. His employer pays overtime at time and a half of regular pay rate. What's Paul's time and a half pay rate? So we're going to take his hourly pay and multiply it by time and a half, so 1.5. And when we multiply that out, we get $16.09. So Paul is going to be paid $16.09 for each hour past his regular workday. Let's look at the next example. Emily's regular time pay rate is $11.25 per hour. What double time rate would she earn for overtime work? So double time, we're multiplying it by 2. Take $11.25 times 2. When we multiply this out, we get $22.50. Okay, now let's look at when we have to find the total pay when we are dealing with regular wages and overtime wages. So there's some steps here that we are going to follow. We need to find the number of regular time and overtime hours that they worked. Once we do that, we need to find the overtime pay rate. Then we are going to find just the regular time pay itself. So we're going to take, we are going to take the regular time hours and multiply it by how much they get paid per hour. So their hourly rate. Then we're going to find our overtime pay. So the total amount we're going to get paid just for our overtime hours. So we're going to take our overtime hours and multiply it by the overtime pay rate. Then the last thing, we're going to take the number we found here and the number we found here and then add them together. This might seem a little difficult just writing out the steps, but let's look at some examples and it should make some sense. So the first one, Olivia works on a 40-hour weekly basis. She's paid time and a half for all hours worked over 40. Her regular pay is $12.87 an hour. She works these hours in a week. Monday was 8.4, Tuesday was 7.8, Wednesday was 8, Thursday was 9.2 and Friday was 8.5. What was her gross wages that she earned? So she's paid based off of a 40-hour week. So let's add up all of her hours and see how many hours she worked in total. So the first thing we're going to do is the total hours. So 8.4 plus 7.8 plus 8.0 plus 9.2 plus 8.5. And when we add this up, we get 41.9 hours. This is a total hours. So we're going to find her regular pay, and then we're going to find her overtime. And then we're going to add those two amounts together. So let's do the regular. So the regular pay, we said, was 40 hours. And she makes $12.87 per hour. So we're going to multiply that together. 40 times $12.87. And when we multiply that, we should get $514.80. So take the hours, multiply by the pay. Overtime. We need to figure out how many hours she worked overtime. So we're going to take our total hours and subtract our 40-hour week. So she worked 1.9 hours overtime. We also need to find her pay rate. Overtime is 1.5. So we need to take $12.87 and multiply it by 1.5. When we do that, we get $19.30. So she gets paid $19.30 per hour she works. So now we're going to take our 1.9, multiply it by $19.30. And that gives us $36.67. So we have our regular pay, we have our overtime pay, but now we know the total amount that she earned last week. So we're going to find the total pay by adding those two together. So $514.80, add it to our overtime of $36.67. When we add those two together, we get $551.47. So we just have to take this problem step by step and figure out all what's needed for regular pay, find out all what's needed for overtime pay, and then add those two together. Let's try the next one. Example. Xavier works on an 8-hour day. He is paid $13.69 an hour for regular time worked and time and a half for any hours over an 8-hour workday. So he gets paid by an 8-hour day and $13.69. He worked these following hours: Monday 9.75, Tuesday 8, Wednesday 6, Thursday 8.5, and Friday 8. What is his gross wages? So this one's a little different. Let's look at all of the hours right now. So on Monday, he worked 9.75. A regular workday is 8 hours. So we're going to look at the regular versus the overtime. So for Monday, 8 hours for the regular pay, overtime the difference. So that'd be 1.75 for Monday. Tuesday he worked 8 hours, no overtime. Wednesday he worked 6 hours, no overtime. Thursday he worked 8.5 hours. So regular work day is 8, so we have a 0.5 difference that he worked for overtime. And Friday is 8 hours. If we add all of this together, 8 plus 8 plus 6 plus 8 plus 8, that's going to give us 38 hours of regular pay. Now, if we add our overtime, 1.75 plus 5, we get 2.25 hours of overtime. Now, let's figure out the regular pay first and then go into the overtime pay. So for regular pay, we're going to take the amount of hours, 38, and multiply it by how much he gets paid an hour, $13.69. When we multiply this, we get $520.22. Now let's look at overtime. We know how many hours he worked. So hours is 2.25, and we need to find the pay. So we're going to take the amount that he gets paid, $13.69, and multiply it by time and a half, so 1.5. When we multiply that, we get $20.53. So now we're going to multiply these two together. Take the hours, 2.25 times 20.53. And when we multiply this, we get $46.19. Now we're going to add these two together. When we add our regular pay and overtime pay, we get the total pay of $566.41. So that is all for regular and overtime pay. Please reach out if you have any questions.